The yellow energy ball flickers in the darkness like a mini sun. A hero's hand holds up this glowing sphere of power. What's a hero, you ask? A hero is a guy with strength way beyond what we mere mortals can comprehend. Standing across is a villain who looks like the half-brother of Hulk, with pale skin, pale as a ghost, wearing an iron mask. On the other side, the hero, a man in a black suit and helmet, stands ready. Then comes the boom. Debris flies everywhere, dust rising like a storm. The big guy raises his fist to strike, but the man in black isn't having it. With fire burning in his hand, he launches a fireball straight into the big guy's stomach, sending him flying. Flames burst out in all directions, and the crowd goes wild. Cheers echo as the hero opens his helmet and lets out a deep breath. The hero is broadcasted on mobile phones too as people watch. Somewhere in a bar, a guy and a girl are chatting about how this hero just took out a thug with one hit. The guy looks at the hero closely and then glances at a red-haired dude nearby who's drowsy from drinking. He looks up and the guy asks, "Hey, doesn't the hero look like Sunwoo?" The red-haired guy, clearly drunk, clutches his stomach and groans, barely standing. "How can I be that hero?" he mumbles. Suddenly, his phone buzzes with a message. "Leave now." He looks at the text coldly, stretches and says, "I'm off to the restroom." Walking through the crowd, phone in hand, the news pops up. The hero has mysteriously disappeared after saving lives. As he reaches the restroom, he closes the door behind him and locks it. He answers his phone, saying, "I'm here." Just then, the window flies open and a guy in a black suit lands in front of him. "Really? Climbing through a window with a helmet on? Bold move," the red-haired guy scoffs. He warns the hero, "If we get caught now, we're toast." The hero tells him to stop fussing so much, taking off his helmet, revealing a face with a mole under his lip. "Hold on, that's a double, or is it the other way around?" A smirk spreads across the hero's face as he asks, "Did I ever tell you there's nothing more thrilling than a hero's big reveal?" He turns to the doppelganger and says, "All right, Juwon, drop the act and show your true form. It gives me the creeps to see my double." Scratching his head, Juwon takes a deep breath, and with a crackle of blue electricity, his disguise vanishes. Sunwoo, watching the transformation, thinks it's really gross. He asks Juwon, "How do you even copy people so easily?" He then pulls his hand closer to grab Jowon's face. He asks with a mischievous grin, "And hey, were you hitting on girls again? Those waitresses tonight are something, huh?" Jowon laughs nervously. "Nah man, of course not." Sunwoo tosses an envelope onto his hero suit. "Iron that suit properly, all right? Nice work today." Juwon, watching Sunwoo's attitude, quietly asks himself, is he really a hero or just pretending? Packing up the suit and slinging a cap on his head, Juwon walks out, realizing not everyone with powers is meant to be a hero. Working as a hero's double is his job, and today is just another shift. He works as the doppelganger to portray the hero's normal life, helping out and hiding their identity. About 20 years ago, people with superpowers started showing up on Earth. There is wreckage, buildings burn, and the world falls into chaos. Villains toss cars like toys, and bullets don't even scratch them. The police are another pile of trash to them. One villain, smiling smugly, watches bullets bounce off him. The cops can't believe it. Then, with a powerful jump, the villain lunges toward them, squeezing a car in his right hand to give them a good smack. A terrified officer looks on, barely able to whisper, "Mommy?" And that's a home run. To bring order back to society, the government introduces a new law. Under this law, anyone with superpowers who breaks the rules or seeks personal gain instantly becomes a villain. The judge's gavel strikes down hard, signaling that those who stop these outlaws are considered heroes. Meanwhile, in a big building at night, the villain headquarters is alive with chaos. Nemesis, the head honcho of the villain union, lounges with a girl and mocks the new law. Villains sit on sofas and beanbags, laughing and sneering at the idea of heroes. Nemesis sips his whiskey, wondering who actually believes in heroes these days. Suddenly, the glass shatters as a masked figure bursts through the panoramic window. This mysterious person, cloaked and concealed, faces the villains. At first, the villains laugh at the hero's dramatic entrance. The hero calls Nemesis's name out loud and declares that, according to the hero-villain law, Article 1, Nemesis will face punishment. The hero points a finger at Nemesis lounging on the sofa. Nemesis's skin turns a dark shade of purple, and he fumes, "Who does this hero think he is?" As his body transforms, growing horns and red eyes, he challenges the hero, asking who dares think they can stop him. He then dashes forward, preparing to strike with hands engulfed in purple flames. The hero's fist glows blue and crackles with electricity as he prepares it. He lands a powerful punch that sends a beam of energy piercing through the villain. Debris flies everywhere, Nemesis, caught in the chaos, wrecks the wall behind him. A smoldering fistprint is left on his chest. Now facing the hero directly, Nemesis demands to know who he is. The hero, with glowing eyes radiating streams of energy, introduces himself as Justice, a hero. Following this showdown, Justice becomes the most popular hero around. The world of heroes expands with Justice's light of hope. Back to Juwon, who transforms his hand into that of a dark-skinned man. With his ability to mimic any appearance, Juwon looks at his hand and realizes he can't just face villains head-on with this ability alone. He stares at his messy apartment, clearly unimpressed. Pulling off his shoes, he envies the heroes living their best lives. Looking at his daily to-do list on the calendar, Dawon removes his hoodie. He sighs, noting that at least he has this ability, even if it's deemed illegal. Counting the cash in an envelope with a smile, he thinks, hey, at least doing this hero gig pays well. In the end, every hero is doing it for the money anyway. Juwon lies on his bed, grumbling about how hard he'd worked to make a fortune and retire by 50. Just then, a knock echoes through his room. He wonders who that could be at this hour. As the knocking continues, he walks toward the door to open it. He opens the door and beholds Justice, the hero, standing there. Justice calls out, asking if this is Juwon's place. Juwon's jaw drops, yelling, "Justice?" Justice strolls in, and Juwon instinctively takes a step back, eyes wide with fear. Justice cuts straight to the point. Is it true that you're illegally impersonating heroes for personal gain? Now the kid has it coming. Juwon's mind races. How did Justice find out? Is he here to arrest him? He wonders how he'll escape, especially with Justice himself at his door. But his surprise turns to confusion when Justice says he actually wants to hire Juwon as a double hero in real life. Juwon blinks, pointing at Justice and stammering, "You're hiring me?" Justice gives a cold stare and replies that Juwon shouldn't ask too many questions. He opens a suitcase packed with documents and papers, saying he's brought everything needed. Juwon picks up a file about Justice, but notices there's no photo and asks for one. Justice casually removes his mask. Well, that's a stunning face, and asks if that will work. He then puts the mask back on. "Start tomorrow," Justice says, handing Juwon an invitation that says VIP on it with a specific address as he prepares to leave. Juwon, still stunned, runs after the hero, pleading for him to wait. But he isn't fast enough, and Justice is already gone. Juwon stares at the invitation, still not quite believing what's happening. The next day, standing in front of a ginormous building, Juwon looks up in awe and confusion. He checks the invitation again, making sure he's in the right place. An elevator door opens. As he steps inside, Juwon pictures Justice, the hero who protects people on the front lines. He imagines himself in Justice's shadow, feeling like his exact opposite. Glancing at the elevator floors, he's puzzled about why Justice called him. But Juwon decides he can't pass up this opportunity. The elevator doors open and he thinks that if he plays his cards right, maybe he can stretch this gig out a bit longer. Juwon enters the spacious office, muttering an "excuse me" as the large room opens up before him. Seated on a sofa facing away is someone he assumes to be Justice. Juwon smiles, casually pulling out a non-disclosure agreement from his bag. "Let's get straight to business," he says confidently, asking Justice to fill it out. But as he steps closer, he freezes. Justice sits on the sofa, blood dripping from his mouth. Juwon takes a step back in horror. His heart pounds as he tries to process what he's seeing. Is the #1 hero dead? Sweat pours down his face as panic sets in. Who could have done this? His mind races, unable to accept what's happening. Gathering his courage, Juwon reaches out toward the lifeless hero, struggling to stay calm. But as he touches Justice's body, an electric current surges through his fingers. Before Juwon can react, a massive flash of lightning erupts. He screams in shock, unable to comprehend what's going on. The light grows brighter and more intense until Justice's body slumps forward, toppling the sofa. Juwon looks down at his burnt hand, trembling. Suddenly, his arm swells uncontrollably. He grabs it, screaming hysterically, trying to make sense of what's happening. His gaze shifts back to Justice's body, now glowing with some sort of energy. Panic takes over as he realizes he needs to escape before things get worse. Without wasting a second, Juwon bolts down the stairs, pushing past a confused crowd. His mind races. He has to report the death of Justice to the association, but he has no idea how. In his rush, he accidentally knocks over someone's coffee. "Hey, watch it, copycat!" a voice snaps. Juwon's eyes widen as he recognizes Sunwoo, the same hero he worked with on his last job. Sunwoo tosses his coffee aside, clearly irritated. "What are you doing here, Juwon?" he asks, his voice dripping with annoyance. Ju-won forces a nervous smile, knowing that, despite their rocky relationship, Sunwoo is still one of the most powerful heroes around. Sunwoo notices Ju-won awkwardly clutching his hand and narrows his eyes. "What's up with your hand?" he asks, suspicious. Jo-won quickly pulls his hand from his pocket, but to his shock, it's back to normal. Sunwoo huffs, unimpressed. "You know how much this suit costs, right?" he grumbles. "Just because you've spent your life imitating heroes doesn't mean you can ruin my clothes." Suddenly, they hear a noise from the back, but Sunwoo keeps his attention on Ju-won, pointing accusingly. "I don't care what's going on here, but you're paying for my dry cleaning?" Out of nowhere, a sharp object slices through the air and rips into Sunwoo's side. He staggers, clutching the bleeding wound, anger flashing in his eyes. In the window stands a man in a green cloak and hood, eerie tentacles sprouting from his back. His violet, sparkling eyes glint with mischief as he mockingly asks, "Is this the same brat from the news?" Ju-won stares in shock at the villain. He knows he's facing a serious threat, but realizes this guy isn't the one who killed Justice. There are no signs of tentacles involved in Justice's death. Flames flicker around Sunwoo's hands as he stands tall, his body engulfed in fire. "I'll fry you into a crispy calamari," he growls, charging toward the villain. The tentacled man smirks, dodging Sunwoo's attack with ease. "So rude," he taunts midair, launching his tentacles toward the hero. Sunwoo crosses his fiery arms, and as the tentacles approach, they catch fire too. Sunwoo lunges at him again, hurling insults. "Stupid octopus!" The villain's smile widens as his tentacles wrap around Sunwoo, squeezing tight. Sunwoo's veins bulge as he tries to pry the tentacles from his neck, struggling to break free. The villain laughs darkly. "You think I only have 4? More tentacles emerge, wrapping tighter. "Child's play," the villain sneers, savoring the hero's struggle. As the battle rages on, people scatter in every direction, fleeing in terror. Ju-won, still in shock from earlier, watches helplessly from afar. How had Sunwoo, one of the top heroes, been caught so easily? He can't believe it. Sunwoo's hand drops limply as the villain grins in triumph. With a casual flick, the octopus-like villain tosses Sunwoo's lifeless body aside like a ragdoll. "Pathetic," he mutters, turning his attention to the panicked crowd. Fear grips the onlookers as his tentacles lash out, knocking a man to the ground, striking another in the back. The villain laughs maniacally, spreading his arms wide like a twisted ringmaster. "Let's have some fun," he roars. As the villain continues his hysterical laughter, Ju-won hides behind a table, his heart racing. His eyes land on a magazine on the floor. Justice is on the cover. Where are the other heroes, he wonders, panic rising? Someone had to show up. The tension in the air grows thick as the people near Ju-won whisper nervously, comforting themselves with the hope that Justice will arrive soon and save them all. But Ju-won's mind is gripped by the horrifying image of Justice's lifeless body. He scans the trembling crowd, dread sinking in. Is this really how it ends? People waiting for a hero who will never come? His mind races, wondering what he can do, but the harsh truth slams into him. He's powerless against such an opponent. Clutching his head in despair, he thinks, "I'm not a hero. I can't fight him." Then a sound catches his ear. Ju-won opens his eyes to see a little girl wiping away her tears as she cries. The octopus-like villain notices her too, his grin growing more wicked. The girl, unaware of the danger, stands frozen in place. "No!" Ju-won shouts, leaning out from his hiding spot. "Run! Get out of here!" His voice cracks as he screams with all his might. The villain, smirking cruelly, calls the girl a rat and sends one of his tentacles shooting toward her, aiming straight for her head. Time seems to slow for Ju-won. Memories of another girl flash through his mind. Someone from his past, grabbed by a monstrous fang tentacle. The fear, the helplessness, it's all coming back. Without thinking, his body moves on instinct. He dashes toward the girl, hand outstretched, determined to stop the tentacle. "I'm such an idiot," he thinks, but there's no turning back now. Suddenly, electricity surges around him, crackling in the air. His eyes flare blue, and his hand begins to emit a powerful current as he tries to catch the tentacle. The electric current rips through the space, and to his shock, his hand, now large and muscular, catches the tentacle mid-strike. The octopus villain's eyes widen in disbelief. "Your Justice!" he yells. Ju-won stands there, completely stunned. He has taken on Justice's appearance without even realizing it. His hand leaks electricity, and the power surging through him feels different, stronger than anything he has experienced before. He squeezes the tentacle tightly with massive strength and then pulls it to rip away from the villain's body. Blood spills out of the tentacle as the villain worries for his own life, with a sweaty face. Juwon then proclaims, "I don't know what's happening," but he raises Justice's cloak, adopting the hero's signature stance. According to the Law on Heroes and Villains, Article 1, you will be punished. As Justice stands facing the octopus, Juwon feels the raw power coursing through his body, almost overwhelming him. His fist crackles with electricity, and he questions himself, can I really do this? It is his first encounter with a villain, and the weight of the moment presses down on him. The octopus, though sweaty and bruised, smirks confidently. Don't worry, Justice, he sneers, his tentacle bubbling with pink goo as it begins to regenerate. I can grow them back as many times as I need to. With that, he launches another attack, his tentacles flying toward Juwon. I'll finish you off, just like I did the last guy. Juwon, still in Justice's form, blinks in surprise. The tentacles seem sluggish, almost as if they are moving in slow motion. Has he always been this slow? Juwon thinks, easily dodging the attacks without breaking a sweat. At this speed, he wonders, ducking and weaving through the strikes with effortless precision. Closing the distance between them, Juwon sees the confusion spread across the octopus's face. Before the villain can react, Juwon lands a devastating punch, flattening the octopus's face and sending the villain flying across the room. As the octopus soars through the air, Juwon grabs hold of his tentacles, spinning him in circles before slamming him into the wall with a thunderous crash. The impact is so hard that the octopus even has to stick out his tongue in shock, his hood flying off to reveal a pale, bald head. He lies embedded in the wall, unconscious, while Juwon stands over him, staring at his own sparking palm in awe. I barely even hit him, and he flew that far, Juwon thinks, amazed at the sheer force of his blows. For a moment, Juwon marvels at how easily he has handled the villain. A grin spreads across his face as he realizes just how cool it has all been. But the crackling energy in his hand reminds him of the danger. If I don't hold back, things could get out of control. As the octopus groans in pain, fear fills his eyes as he looks up at Juwon. Clenching his fist, Juwon feels a surge of confidence. Now even I can fight villains, he thinks, as his hand vibrates with raw energy. But suddenly, he notices his hand trembling uncontrollably. Panic washes over him as he feels the strength he has wielded slip away. The once powerful surge is now spiraling out of his control, just like the first time his hand swelled with power. What's happening? Juwon thinks anxiously, trying to steady himself. The octopus, seeing an opening, launches another attack. Just as Juwon braces himself for the impact, a brilliant yellow beam of energy shoots through the air, striking the octopus in the back. The villain screams in agony as he is slammed into the wall with incredible force. Juwon, shocked, turns to see who has intervened. A girl with green glasses walks toward him, her expression one of admiration. I didn't expect anything less from you, she says, her voice filled with excitement. Did you know I was coming? You distracted the villain so I could take him down, she adds, clearly impressed with Justice's supposed foresight. Juwon, still processing everything, manages an awkward smile. Yeah, totally, he replies, grateful that he has been saved. The girl beams with pride. I knew it, she exclaims, clearly pleased with herself. Juwon lets out a sigh of relief, thankful for the unexpected backup. But just as they begin to relax, tentacles burst from the ground once more. The octopus, bloodied but furious, leaps back to his feet, scattering debris as dust fills the air. The girl's expression turns from pride to frustration. She quickly puts her mask back on, and her eyes begin to glow with a fierce yellow light. With a single, focused gaze, she unleashes another energy beam that strikes the fleeing octopus, leaving his body smoking and motionless on the ground. How dare he think he could challenge a hero, she mutters angrily. Absurd. When she turns back toward where Justice has been standing, she realizes he has vanished. Sighing in frustration, she mutters, I was hoping to get his autograph. Before she can dwell on her disappointment, a figure in a hood appears behind her, urging her to focus. Didn't you see all the wounded people? The hooded girl asks, her voice serious. The girl with the green glasses frowns, snapping back to reality. You're right, she says, glancing at the people around them. Let's help them. The girl with glasses rushes over to a wounded man, her hands trembling slightly as she asks if he is okay. Meanwhile, the hooded girl scans the area, her expression darkening with suspicion. Is Justice really alive? She wonders. As she turns, she notices Juwon, the main character, sprinting away in sheer panic, not even glancing back, which only deepens her suspicions. Back at his apartment, Juwon anxiously shreds the documents Justice has given him. His hand still numb from the earlier battle, he mutters to himself about the overwhelming number of papers. After tying up the garbage bag, he calmly descends the stairs, dumping it in a nearby trash can. As he scratches his head, he begins thinking about what he should do now, his thoughts drifting back to Justice, the #1 hero. But if Justice has truly been killed, what kind of monster could have done it? His fingers run nervously through his hair. I couldn't even think of transforming or running away. What if someone saw me? A voice, soft but taunting, interrupts his thoughts. I saw you, the voice teases. Ju-won's heart skips a beat as he spins around, eyes scanning the empty alleyway, but sees no one. He is barely able to ask, "From where?" and gets a chilling reply, "From below you." Ju-won's gaze drops to the ground in disbelief. From the shadows beneath his feet, a pair of glowing eyes stares up at him. With horrifying grace, a woman's hands emerge from the darkness, pulling herself up through his shadow as if crawling out of a hole. Ju-won stumbles back, screaming in terror as the hooded girl from earlier rises before him, her tone flat as she comments, "Very noisy." Dark, inky hands slither up from the shadow again, this time grabbing hold of the garbage bag. With a single tug, they rip it apart, scattering the shredded papers into the air. The girl extends her hand, and the torn pieces begin reassembling themselves, stitching together into the original documents Justice had given him. Ju-won's breath catches in his throat. He stares at the restored papers, his mind racing in disbelief. The reconstructed documents lay in precise rows on the ground as the girl stares at them coldly. Her gaze sharpens and she asks Ju-won, "Did you see Justice's dead body?" She spreads her arms wide, and shadowy tendrils of various shapes emerge from the ground, swirling menacingly around her. "The fact that you know this puts me in a difficult position," she says, her voice laced with a chilling calm. Jo-won, his heart racing, watches as the shadows inch closer, snaking toward him with lethal intent. He realizes with a jolt that she intends to kill him. Acting on instinct, he leaps back just in time. His face hardens as he steadies himself, preparing to transform once more. "If you're the one who killed Justice," he says, his voice rising in determination, "then I won't hold back." She points at him, and the shadow tentacles lash out with speed and precision. Ju-won dashes to the side, narrowly dodging the attack. He notes that her strategy is oddly similar to the octopus villains from earlier. Quick, aggressive, and relentless. More tentacles snap toward him, but Ju-won manages to dodge, positioning himself to counterstrike. He believes that if he can just get close enough, one solid hit will take her down. But then, his body begins to betray him. His mind clouds with confusion as he glances down to see his leg shifting back to its normal form, the power of Justice slipping away just as it did during the previous battle. "Not now," he mutters through gritted teeth, frustration mounting. Before he can react, another shadowy attack shoots toward him. Ju-won leaps back, raising his arms to block the brunt of the assault. The shadowy tendrils slam into him, but he manages to brace himself just in time. The girl sighs as she watches him struggle, arcs of electricity flickering around his faltering hero form. "In the end," she remarks, her tone filled with disappointment, "you're just a pathetic imitator." The girl attacks again, shadow tentacles ripping through the air. Ju-won's left hand, still resembling Justice's, slams into the asphalt, tearing out a chunk of concrete. He lifts the block as a makeshift shield, using it to deflect the incoming attack. The tentacles veer off, their force redirected by the stone barrier. With a burst of determination, Ju-won charges forward, still clutching the chunk of asphalt. The woman jumps back, eyes narrowing in surprise. But from behind, her shadowy tentacles strike again. Ju-won, anticipating the move, swings the block behind him to fend them off. The woman's speed is impressive, but Ju-won's reflexes and quick thinking keep him in the fight. The stone shatters into a cloud of dust as Ju-won strikes through the debris, launching an uppercut at the mysterious woman. She dodges, but not without Ju-won grazing her mask, tearing it slightly. Without hesitation, he continues his attack. "Speed up," he tells himself, raising his hand for another strike. But then, as he looks at the woman in surprise, his body freezes. She smirks, wiping the small abrasion from her face. "Not bad," she admits, "but this is where it ends." Ju-won's heart drops as he realizes, too late, that he is standing in her shadow. "You're now in my domain," she says with chilling calm. Shadowy tendrils shoot up from the ground, wrapping around Ju-won's arms and legs, coiling tighter with every second. His throat constricts as one of the tendrils wraps around his neck, cutting off his air. His vision blurs, and he can barely groan, his mind screaming in panic. "I can't breathe." Suddenly, without warning, she stares at him and snaps her fingers. The tendrils release their grip, and Ju-won drops to the ground, gasping for breath. His eyes widen in confusion. Why has she let him go? He looks up at her, still dazed and struggling to catch his breath. Are you going to continue playing the part of the lame wannabe hero? The woman asks, her voice dripping with mockery. Ju-won, still wheezing, stares at her in confusion. What do you mean? Without warning, she grabs his face, pulling him close. Instead of being a pathetic ordinary hero in your daily life, why not become Justice's replacement? Ju-won's eyes widen in shock. He can't believe what he is hearing. The woman's grip tightens on his face as she continues. Justice is the embodiment of everything heroes stand for. If news of his murder gets out, it will cause widespread panic. She releases him, stepping back casually. I need someone to buy me some time while I figure things out. Ju-won, still reeling from everything that has happened, wipes his face and points accusingly at her. You just tried to kill me. Who are you? The woman smirks, introducing herself. Chrome. I'm one of Justice's teammates. Ju-won blinks, trying to process her words. So, you're a hero? He asks, his voice filled with disbelief. Chrome points to the scattered documents on the ground. You can check it for yourself in the files. I mentioned there. Still skeptical, Ju-won sits down and quickly begins skimming through the papers. Sure enough, he finds her image and details. He stares at the information, struggling to reconcile the situation. Chrome, still watching him, adds with a sly grin, I just wanted to shut you up for a bit, intimidate you. Killing you wasn't part of the plan. Her gaze sharpens. But if you agree to become Justice's replacement, I'll make it worth your while. How does a monthly payment of 100 million in cash sound? Ju-won's jaw drops as he hears the offer. The amount is staggering compared to his current income. After a moment, he manages to regain his composure and asks, how am I supposed to take on Justice's role? What if I get caught? Chrome extends her hand with a confident grin. Don't worry about the details. I'll take care of that. Ju-won rubs his face, trying to think clearly. This is a bit overwhelming. Listen, Chrome cuts him off. I'm not forcing you into this. But if even a hint of Justice's death leaks out, all the villains lurking in the shadows will come out. The moment they find out the strongest hero is gone, it will be chaos. The villains will cause a war with the heroes, and countless innocent lives will be lost. Ju-won flinches and glances at Chrome, who then asks, so what's your decision? He looks at her, realizing the gravity of her words. Chrome is right. Justice's presence keeps things in order. He recalls the fight with the octopus and questions if he can handle being Justice. The thought of more lives being at risk troubles him, but as he looks at his trembling hand, his confidence wavers. Sensing his hesitation, Chrome sighs. Maybe I asked too much. She begins to turn away, her tone laced with disappointment. I shouldn't have expected anything. Just keep Justice's death a secret. She starts to walk off. Wait! Ju-won calls out, stopping her. Forcing a smile, he adds, I was just, calculating the risks. Chrome looks back, her eyes cold and evaluating. Ju-won, still smiling awkwardly, continues, considering the risks, the confidentiality agreement, and the security involved, 100 million isn't quite enough. Ju-won flashes a confident grin. I need at least 200 million. Chrome's smile widens. Don't you back out on that decision. A week later, Ju-won slumps over his laptop in Chrome's apartment, surrounded by piles of documents. He mutters Justice's name, reflecting on its lingering significance. As he sifts through the paperwork, he chuckles at some of the details, still processing the gravity of the situation. Soon, Chrome's voice comes from outside. It's time to go. They drive off in a sleek white car. Ju-won keeps his focus on the documents, but curiosity gets the better of him. Can I ask something? Chrome keeps her eyes on the road. Go ahead. Ju-won ventures. Besides keeping Justice's death from the villains, shouldn't the top heroes know? Is there a reason we're not informing them? Chrome, resting her hand on the steering wheel as shadows wrap around it, replies, that's how things are done. You'll understand more when you see it firsthand. They pull up to a nondescript white building. Ju-won raises an eyebrow. Isn't this the logistics delivery center? But why are we here? Chrome nods, confirming Ju-won's suspicion. As they enter the building, she approaches a camera at the entrance, shows her card, and as it scans with a red light under the lens, a hidden door opens. Ju-won's face is bathed in the light as Chrome explains, this is the actual headquarters of the heroes. The door leads them into a vast hall with a towering golden statue. Heroes in various costumes move around, engaging in different activities. Ju-won marvels at the atrium, taking in the bustling scene. Chrome motions to a large, bright door. Stay here for a moment, she says. Chrome leaves Ju-won at the door and enters a room filled with several tables. She heads toward the largest table, where key figures from the 4 main hero teams are engaged in a heated debate. Haste, the second in command of the Guardians team, slams her hand on the table. Why is it our fault that the villains have become more active? Trium, the leader of the Ubermensch team, responds coolly. The number of incidents in your area has skyrocketed, while other areas report normal or even decreased activity. Haste's eyes narrow as she points accusingly at the smiling hero. It's because you've pulled all the staff from our team. Nivelle, the second in command of the Ubermensch team, shrugs nonchalantly. We prioritize those who deliver results. Everything from the atrium's maintenance to our salaries depends on those results. Arcadia, first in command of the Union team, lets out a yawn. Honestly, the most bizarre thing is that everyone is given equal opportunities. His comment is met with disbelief. Are you really a hero? How can you say such things? Ju-won observes the scene unfolding in the room, his eyes wide with disbelief. The chaos among the hero representatives is unlike anything he imagined. Instead of the composed, heroic figures he expected, the meeting seems like a disaster zone. The robot Zeus, commanding the El Condor team, presses for information about Justice's whereabouts. Pandora, the second in command of El Condor, with striking pink hair, interjects with a smile, noting that a week has already passed. Neville suggests that the rumors of Justice's death might be true. Haste, enraged, radiates a blue aura as she defends Justice's honor, insisting that no one has the right to speak ill of him. As Neville, surrounded by a yellow aura, stands up for a challenge, Banshee, the second in command of Union, and a girl in a robotic suit breaks the tension. She criticizes the others for their childish behavior and argues that it's crucial to consider the possibility of Justice being in danger due to the lack of communication for an entire week. Her gaze shifts to Chrome, pressing her on whether Justice had contacted her. Chrome solemnly replies that Justice had only mentioned he would be away for some time, but Pandora's skeptical look suggests otherwise. Pandora, having investigated Justice's penthouse and found blood everywhere, raises the issue. Chrome's discomfort is palpable as she faces the scrutiny of the heroes. Zeus demands confirmation of Pandora's claim. Chrome, visibly anxious, knows that any further deception could unravel her position. The tension peaks when a figure walks into the room. It's Justice himself. He greets the heroes with an apology for his extended absence and promises to explain everything. As Justice speaks, Ju-won, hidden under his mask, struggles to manage his nerves. The stark contrast between the heroes' true behavior and their public personas is jarring to him. He exhales, reflecting that if things go well, this chaotic meeting might resolve without further issues. Now, how did this happen, you ask? Let's dive into a flashback. Pandora's accusation that Chrome lies sends a ripple of shock through the room. Ju-won, peeking through a crack, feels a wave of fear. He sees the girl, buried in a teddy bear, talking about the blood everywhere. Zeus turns to Chrome and demands answers. The tension is palpable, and Chrome's nervousness is clear. Ju-won clenches his fist, feeling the transformation start to take hold again. He thinks that Chrome's deception is on the verge of being exposed. As the heroes argue and discuss the situation, Ju-won's anxiety grows. He watches as the heroes turn their disbelief toward Chrome, their voices rising in frustration. Just then, Ju-won steps into the room, fully dressed as Justice. His heart pounds as he faces the assembly of heroes. He knows he has to maintain the facade. Arcadia, noticing him, comments on how Justice seems well. Chrome, horrified, turns to Ju-won with a silent plea for him to get it right. Ju-won, trying to stay calm, walks forward with a sense of unease. The room is filled with powerful figures, and he can feel the weight of their scrutiny. He reminds himself of the countless hours spent perfecting his disguise. Despite the nervousness, he presses on, determined to keep up the act and convince the heroes that everything is under control. He strides forward with confidence, a little smirk playing on his lips. He can't help but feel a bit of a sneaky thrill at fooling everyone around him. He reminisces about those late-night sessions, memorizing every detail of his new persona. He observes Justice's moves, studies his walk, tone, and even his usual stance. With a slight smile, he leans on the table thinking, nailed it. Neville eyes him suspiciously and wonders why he's so chill despite being late. He grimaces and asks if the hero plans to explain the mess in the penthouse and his whereabouts. Ju-won notes they already know about the crime scene, to which Justice confirms there was an assassination attempt against him. The table erupts in shock when the hero drops the bomb about an assassination attempt. Gasps and surprised murmurs fill the room. Haste stares at the hero, her hand flying to her chest, and demands to know how he keeps it a secret for so long. Ju-won explains he has to tread carefully, then straightens up and announces that, given the circumstances, he and Chrome have to keep things hush-hush. He promises they'll be the first to know the full story, even if he can't spill all the beans yet. The hero, seeing everyone's rapt attention, decides it's the perfect moment. He fixes his gaze on Pandora and snaps, "Who gave you permission to waltz into my penthouse?" Pandora hides behind a bear in fright, saying she is just worried. Justice sighs, noting that talking about the assassination will only make the investigation trickier and cause clients to be even more cautious. Pandora, in tears, buries her face in the bear and apologizes profusely, admitting her mistake. Juwon looks at the girl, feeling his irritation rise. "Your careless reasoning is disappointing," he says, trying to sound composed but feeling like he is scolding a child. He hopes his words will be enough to end the conversation, but it still doesn't sit right with him. It is hard to believe this is the reality he finds himself in. Tryon raises his hand, cutting through the tension. "I find it hard to believe. You're talking about an assassination attempt," he says calmly, his hands coming together as if he is about to give a lecture. "This happens in the city center, and yet no one knows anything." His smile broadens as he closes his eyes. "Before we jump to conclusions, we need to confirm whether it is truly an attempt on his life. For all we know, this could be part of his plan." Justice blinks, taken aback. "What do you mean by that?" he asks, confusion written across his face. But before Tryon can respond, Pandora intervenes, her voice sharp. "No way," she snaps, waving her fist angrily. "Why would Justice lie about something like that? That's more of an old man's tactic." Justice gives a soft smile, grateful for the defense. "Thank you, Pandora," he says. She isn't done, though. Her expression turns stern, her eyes narrowing as she stares at him. "But you're still too soft-hearted," she says seriously. "That's why villains keep getting away from you. You're too worried about civilians." Her voice grows colder. "We should just kill the villains outright. That's how we save more people in the end." Zeus, sitting nearby, nods in agreement. "She's right," he chimes in. "How long are we going to dance around trying to save a few extra lives? It's slowing us down. If the villains are watching our every move, they've already got their plan in motion." Juwon stands there, trying to process the unsettling shift in the room. He can feel the division among the heroes, the tension crackling in the air. They aren't friends, far from it. It is clear that beneath the surface they are all maneuvering, each trying to outplay the other. Arcadia raises his hand, signaling everyone to stop for a moment. "Wait a second," he says calmly, his voice breaking the tension. "If Justice decides to share this with us, then there's a reason behind it." He pauses, glancing around at the displeased faces. "Besides, we've got something cool planned for today, so let's move on." His suggestion lingers in the air, and the heroes fall silent, though many are clearly still unhappy. Juwon, still trying to wrap his head around the group dynamics, watches in confusion. What is this even about, he wonders, feeling increasingly out of place among these so-called heroes. After a while, a sleek black car speeds down the highway, moving swiftly through the traffic. Inside, Juwon stretches out on the seat, feeling the exhaustion weighing down his body. "Man, I'm so tired," he mutters, rubbing his eyes. A can of soda is tossed in his direction, and he catches it without missing a beat. Across from him, Chrome is also sipping on a soda, glancing over. "You do a decent job today," she says, her voice casual. "If we ignore some of the flaws in your story?" Juwon cracks open the can, a grin spreading across his face. "Yeah, well, it's better than them finding out the real truth, right?" The two sit across from each other. After a moment, Juwon looks up at Chrome. "All right, but seriously, what's with everyone being so hostile toward Justice? I mean, what's their deal?" Chrome explains that the heroes are divided by their interests. There are 4 main groups. The Guardian faction, Justice, and Haste are part of the Guardians. For them, protecting civilians is the top priority, no matter the cost. The El Condor with Zeus and Pandora. Their philosophy: the only way to end the villain problem is to wipe them out completely. Chrome continues. Then you've got Tryon and Neville and Ubermensch, who believe they're the chosen ones, the elite among all heroes. They're not interested in protecting civilians or wiping out villains. They see themselves as superior beings. And last but not least, Arcadia and Banshee. They're the Union, driven purely by personal gain. Their alliance is based on what benefits them the most. Juwon takes a sip from the can, then casually asks, "So, are heroes just politicians with cooler outfits?" His curiosity peaks as he wonders aloud what kind of hero Haste really is. He recalls how passionately she defended her rights. Chrome, looking a bit bored, raises a finger and replies, "She's second in command of the Guardian. Pretty talented, too. I'd bet she's the most loyal to Justice." She narrows her eyes. "Why do you ask?" Juwon stares at the can, lost in thought. "When I mention the assassination attempt, I remember Haste. She tries to act surprised, but there's something off. Annoyance, maybe. My ability to copy people's appearances makes me sensitive to these small details. Chrome raises an eyebrow. Are you seriously saying? Juwon cuts her off. It's just a theory. We can't be sure. Suddenly, the car screeches to a halt. Chrome calmly steps out, holding the door open. We're here. Time to move. Juwon blinks. Where are we? Standing on the road, Chrome explains. As you know, villains have been on the ropes ever since justice came into the picture. The heroes have been relentless, trying to crush them completely. Juwon watches in shock as Chrome continues. They call it Operation Villain Extermination. The heroes plan to wipe the villains out for good. She gestures to the city, which is in ruins. Smoke rising, buildings scorched, and energy beams flashing through the chaos.